Hi, welcome to part 2 of the stained glass tropical fish. In the last video, part 1, which I'll put a link up top for you to click to if you haven't seen it, we painted the fish, we foiled the fish, and now we are going to solder the fish together. So don't do what I did and not pin your piece, because I had tried to tack my piece together without having pinned it. So it, it was, the pieces moved, and needless to say, I had to undo it and refoil some of the areas. So here I am now on my second attempt um, to pin the fish together according to the pattern. You know, match up the pattern to your pieces as much as you can. And I'm using the straight pins, and my surface that I'm using, and I've said this before, it's just a ceiling tile. It's an Armstrong ceiling tile turned upside down, and I solder and I put my pieces together on this. I should have known better. I've done this before, and you cannot, trust the pieces to stay where you put them when you go to tack them. So don't make the shortcuts like I did, because it doesn't work out. So carefully matching up my pieces to the pattern, I slowly put the pins in to hold them in place so I can get the next piece matched up and put in place. And eventually they'll all be one cohesive fish. I don't know why I thought I could do it that way. I should have known better. Anyway, don't make my mistake. Pin your piece together first and be safe. So you can see some of the tacks that are still on the foil that I had done before, and it was a complete disaster. So we're almost there. I'm going to be putting this pattern up for sale on my website, artbysherylAnn.com, and it's just a minimal fee for the pattern, which if you're interested in buying the pattern, following along, will help me pay for my website, because I'm just keeping it up for everybody so they have access to my art. And that will be up soon. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention is when you paint with the Vitrea paints, You want to try not to get the solder on the paint because it doesn't come off all that easy. See, as you can see, I had gotten some solder on the paint and it's kind of difficult to get it off. So try not to get your, you put your solder on your soldering iron over top of your piece, or, just try to prevent it as much as you can. So we're going to add a little flux so that I can start the tacking. And really all you're doing is adding just a little bit of solder just to hold the pieces in place and together. Usually you'd want to do it, at the corners. Sometimes if it's a long run, you do it in the center of the run. It's just to hold the piece together so that when you do solder it, the pieces don't move around. Remember to not let your solder wire get too short because it does radiate heat up it, and you could burn your fingers. And as you see, I got it on my paint again. So don't do what I do. Learn from my mistakes. This piece is for me, so it's not a problem. Okay, so what I usually like to do is, once I'm done with the tacking, I pull all my pins out. And it gives you, room to work around, because the pins get in the way. So I'll be taking the pins out. So now I'm going to flex all of the seams so that I can go ahead and start the soldering work. And I usually start out with the right side first, and then I flip it and go to the back side. And this is just the way I work. Other people will be very careful with what they do on the right side first, but I just find that I fill the seams first on the right side. I don't really care what it looks like. I do the back side, and then I make sure the back side looks good, and then I flip it over and I go over the front side just to make sure my seams are rounded and not flat. There's enough solder on there. And so you see I'm just really just filling in the gaps, the seams and the gaps with solder, not really caring what it looks like at this point. So this video is all real time. I'm not going to fast forward. I'm going to let you watch um, the process. It takes a little time. If your solder doesn't seem to be working very good, it's because you need some more flux. Without the flux, you can't solder. As you can see, I'm just using an old paintbrush. You can use whatever you have on hand. Works fine. And also, you don't want to leave your soldering iron in one spot for too long, because what happens is your solder will flow through to the other side and create a glob on the other side. So you want to get it in there and get off as, quick as you can. So the glass is a little hot. You flip it over. And now we go over the back side with solder. Make my seams look nice. So we skip ahead. I am tinning the edges at this point. Remember, when you're tinning the edges, you need to have the surface perpendicular with the you mean straight up and down, so that gravity does not cause your solder to fall off. And you're looking for a rounded edge. Although I'm probably going to be putting this into a mural, so the tinning on the edges is not really that crucial. I'm going to be inserting it into other glass. So as you can see now, I'm really doing the fine detail and making sure that my solder seam is rounded and smooth. And the key is to just go slowly, let the solder melt, and just keep moving so that you're not in one place for too long. And sometimes you set your solder there, let it melt a little bit, and then lift up to get the nice smooth lines, or slide out horizontally. So I'm adding a little more solder to my seams because it wasn't rounded. Checking over the piece, making sure that I'm happy with the final results. I have a little bit of a glob there, so just use gravity to pull some of it off and then just smooth out the edge. I had a little bit of bubbling going on, and that's because there was too much flux on the fish. And so I had to keep going over the line to get rid of the little bubble hole that it made. The extra solder that's on the glass, little balls of solder that end up on there, will wash right off as I clean the piece. And I use Dawn dish detergent and a little scrubby, and I actually just scrub the piece, make sure I get into all the nooks and crannies to make sure that the flux is cleaned out and the surface is clean. Because if you leave any flux on your piece, over time the flux will tarnish your solder and your glass. So you want to make sure that your piece is good and clean, and then polish it with some wax. Now, if you're going to stain your glass, your solder rather, with some patina, then of course you wouldn't put the wax on until you're done. So really just checking over the piece, making sure that all the little imperfections that I don't like are taken care of. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer your questions. The video is really being put out to help others who would like to create stained glass pieces. And I'm all about sharing what I know and helping others to succeed with what they'd like to do. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe so that you won't miss any of my videos, and you'll be notified when any of my videos come out. I have lots of stained glass ideas, and some of them are unique and different. And I will be making more fish, so if you like fish, come back. So here is the piece all ready for my mural, and I'll put it up by the white so you can see it. And he's swimming along. Happy little fish. Thanks for watching my video. I hope you liked it. I hope you got something out of it. Have a good one.